You didn't click this video by accident. Something deep inside you is whispering, maybe even screaming, that you're not living the life you were meant to live. Not entirely, maybe not even close. And if you're honest with yourself, you've known it for a while. But here's the uncomfortable truth. It doesn't happen all at once. The tragedy of a wasted life arrives quietly, through the tiniest betrayals. A silent yes when you wanted to say no. A compromise that felt harmless. A dream shelved just for now. Piece by piece, you trade authenticity for approval, purpose for predictability, and one day you wake up staring into a mirror and you don't recognize the person blinking back. That's not an accident, that's conditioning. Because the system you were born into didn't raise you to think. It trained you to comply, sit still, memorize, repeat. From classrooms to boardrooms, obedience is rewarded and questioning is punished. But obedience is not intelligence. It's not wisdom. It's not freedom. It's just performance. And Nietzsche, behind all his fury, all his fire, left behind one urgent message. Learn to think for yourself or be enslaved by the thoughts of others. Because the truth is, you're either sculpting your life consciously or you're sleepwalking through someone else's design. And if you're watching this, there's still time to wake up. Here's the second truth people only understand when it's far too late. Most people don't want truth. They want comfort that looks like truth. They say they want to grow, to change, to wake up. But show them something real, something raw, unfiltered, and challenging, and watch their reaction. They flinch, they rationalize, they run. Why? Because truth is sharp. It cuts. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't soften its blow to match your beliefs. Comfort, on the other hand, is seductive. It wraps around you like a warm blanket, whispering, "Stay. You're fine. You don't need to change." But comfort is not safety, it's stagnation. And Nietzsche knew this. He watched society wrap itself in convenient lies. Easy slogans, groupthink, surface-level inspiration. People pretending to be enlightened while desperately avoiding the pain of self-confrontation. Because the truth doesn't make you feel good, it makes you face yourself. And facing yourself, that's terrifying, because it means admitting that much of your life might have been built on denial. Nietzsche didn't say this to shame people. He said it because he understood the stakes. A life built on comfort instead of truth is a fragile illusion. And when life finally shatters that illusion, through crisis, loss, betrayal, most people realize they were never ready for the truth because they never practiced hearing it. Most people spend their lives running from pain, numbing it, ignoring it, masking it with distractions. But here's the brutal truth. What hurts you is trying to teach you. Nietzsche believed that pain isn't punishment. It's a mirror, a brutally honest one. It reflects everything you've avoided, denied, or buried. He said, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in the suffering." That isn't just poetic, it's a blueprint. Because pain exposes what matters to you. It shows you what you're still holding on to, what you're afraid to lose. It uncovers the parts of you that still need healing, strength, or closure. And yet, most people see pain as a flaw in the system, something to be fixed or removed. They numb it with substances. They cover it with toxic positivity. They run fast and far into comfort and distraction. But pain waits. It doesn't go away. It grows louder, until one day it brings you to your knees and forces you to listen. Nietzsche didn't run from pain. He walked straight into it, because he knew only by facing what hurts can you become someone who can't be broken by it. When you stop treating pain like a problem and start treating it like a message, everything changes. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to reveal?" And by the time most people understand this, they've already lost years running from the very thing that could have freed them. There's something deeply comforting about being part of the crowd. It offers certainty, identity, belonging. You feel safe when everyone around you believes the same thing. But here's the truth Nietzsche screamed through his writing. The crowd is not wise. It's just loud. It doesn't think. It doesn't question. It just repeats. Nietzsche wrote, "Insanity in individuals is rare, but in groups it is the rule." Think about that. We spend our lives chasing the approval of people who are just as lost, afraid, and conditioned as we are, hoping that by doing what they approve of, we'll finally feel fulfilled. But the crowd doesn't want your truth. It wants your agreement. And the moment you start thinking for yourself, really thinking, you'll feel it push back. People won't say it out loud, but their energy shifts. They pull away. You stop fitting in. And here's the hard truth. If you want a life that's truly yours, you will have to disappoint the crowd. That's the price of authenticity. That's the cost of freedom. And most people, they're not willing to pay it. So they blend in, they perform, they trade their voice for belonging. Until one day, they realize the people they spent their lives pleasing never actually knew them at all. And by then, they've already sacrificed everything real about themselves just to feel accepted by people who wouldn't recognize their soul if it screamed. You were likely raised to be kind, to be nice, to be polite. And yes, those are beautiful values. But Nietzsche saw something dangerous in the way society teaches kindness. It celebrates softness without teaching strength. And that's how good people get destroyed. Because kindness, without boundaries, becomes self-betrayal. Kindness without strength becomes a target. In the real world, predators don't respect kindness. They exploit it. Takers don't stop just because you're generous. They take more. You think your patience will earn peace, but instead it attracts people who will test just how much you're willing to give up before you finally say no. Nietzsche wrote, "The weak are always forced to lie." Why? Because without strength, you don't have the freedom to be honest. You hide your truth to avoid conflict. You shrink your needs to keep others comfortable. You sacrifice your voice for the illusion of harmony. But peace built on silence is not peace. It's submission. Real power isn't loud. It doesn't need to dominate. It simply refuses to be used. The kind person who is also strong, that's the one who changes lives. But the one who's only kind, they get left behind, forgotten, taken for granted, until one day they wake up exhausted, not from giving, but from never being protected by the person they needed most, themselves. Motivation feels good. It's exciting, it's electric. It gives you the illusion of control. But Nietzsche would laugh at that illusion, because he knew what most people never realize until it's too late. Discipline is not about motivation. It's about self-respect. Motivation is a mood. Discipline is a decision. You don't brush your teeth every morning because you're inspired. You do it because it's who you are. Real discipline isn't about forcing yourself. It's about remembering yourself, your values, your standards, your worth. Nietzsche saw discipline as the ultimate act of sovereignty, the ability to act in alignment with your values, even when your emotions scream otherwise. Because when your actions are tied to how you feel in the moment, you're a slave to your mood. But when they're tied to your identity, you become solid, anchored, trustworthy to yourself. Most people never build that. They chase motivation. They wait for the right time. They look for hacks, secrets, inspiration. And all the while, their dreams rot under the weight of inconsistency. They don't have a motivation problem. They have a self-respect problem. Because discipline isn't punishment. It's devotion. It's the quiet promise you make to your future, and the louder action you take today to honor it. And the day you finally stop asking, "How do I stay motivated?" and start asking, "Who do I refuse to be anymore?" That's the day your life changes. Here's one of the hardest truths to swallow. Not everyone cheering for your growth wants to see you rise. Oh, they'll clap, as long as your transformation doesn't threaten them, as long as your healing doesn't make them confront their own wounds, as long as your success doesn't cast a shadow over their stagnation. Nietzsche knew this. He believed that people don't consciously want you to fail, but they don't truly want you to outgrow the version of you they're comfortable with. Because when you rise, when you start setting boundaries, prioritizing yourself, breaking patterns, it sends a message. You could do this too, but you haven't, and that message hurts. So people respond with subtle resistance. They distance themselves, they call you selfish, they stop laughing at your jokes, stop inviting you, stop supporting your dreams. It's not personal, it's psychological equilibrium. Your evolution disrupts the dynamic. And if that dynamic was built on your self-abandonment, they'll fight to bring the old version of you back. And that's where most people falter. They shrink again. They dim their light to avoid being too much. But here's what Nietzsche would whisper. If they only loved the version of you that kept them comfortable, they never really loved you. Most people only realize this after the loss of friendships, families, and roles they thought were forever. But what they're really losing is a life where they were never allowed to fully show up. Everyone has a shadow, the parts of yourself you've hidden, rejected, or been taught to be ashamed of. Your jealousy, your anger, your ego, your selfishness, your darkness. Society tells you to suppress it, to be good, to be nice, to be harmless. But Nietzsche saw the truth hiding beneath that mask. What you suppress doesn't disappear, it multiplies. And eventually, it sabotages you. It whispers when you're calm. It lashes out when you're close to peace. It poisons relationships, decisions, ambitions. Because it was never healed, only buried. The shadow is like a child locked in the basement. Ignore it and it starts screaming. Ignore it longer and it starts breaking things. You'll say the wrong thing at the worst time. You'll destroy the job, the love, the opportunity, without even knowing why. Not because you're broken, but because there's a part of you that's never been seen. Nietzsche didn't believe in becoming a perfect person. He believed in becoming a whole person. And wholeness doesn't come from pretending to be light. It comes from integrating the dark, not worshiping it, not obeying it, but understanding it. Because the person who knows their shadow can wield it. They don't get hijacked by their wounds. They walk beside them as an ally, not a saboteur. Most people only realize this after they've ruined something precious, and they whisper, "Why did I do that?" The answer? You didn't. Your shadow did, and it was tired of being ignored. There's a trap that looks like kindness. It feels like being good. It earns praise, keeps the peace, avoids conflict. It's called people-pleasing. And Nietzsche would have torn that mask off with fire, because behind the fake smiles and constant yeses is a person losing access to their own clarity. When you make a habit of prioritizing what everyone else wants, you start to forget what you want. You overthink every word. You second-guess every decision. You dilute your instincts, not because they're wrong, but because they might offend someone. But here's the brutal irony. The more you please others, the less they actually see you. People fall in love with your performance, not your truth. And eventually that performance becomes so heavy, so exhausting, that the real you starts pounding on the inside of your ribs, begging to be seen. But by that point, it's terrifying, because the people around you, they don't recognize the real you anymore. And maybe they never did. Nietzsche believed that knowing yourself requires disappointing others, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity, because your authentic life will always contradict someone else's expectations. And most people never find that authenticity. They stay trapped in relationships, careers, and belief systems they've outgrown, because the idea of rejection feels worse than the pain of invisibility. Until one day they whisper, "No one really knows me." And that moment is the first crack in the mask. You followed the rules, got the degree, found the job, married the partner, stayed out of trouble, You did everything they said would lead to happiness. So why do you still feel hollow? Nietzsche saw this before most of us ever lived it. He believed the greatest despair wasn't in failing at life, but in succeeding at the wrong version of it. Because you can climb the ladder, only to realize it's been leaning against the wrong wall the entire time. The rituals of success can give you status, applause, even luxury, but they can't give you meaning, and that's what breaks people. They hit their goals, yet wake up with a question stuck in their chest. Why don't I feel whole? Because what they built wasn't theirs. It was someone else's idea of a worthy life. A template handed down, never questioned, only followed. And now the ache is quiet but relentless. Most people respond to it by numbing, distracting, saying, I should be grateful. I have everything. But gratitude can't fix misalignment. Success doesn't silence the soul when it's screaming, this isn't you. Nietzsche didn't tell people to chase more. He urged them to chase truth. To stop asking, what should I do, and start asking, what's mine to do? That's the path out of the void. Not more effort, not more hustle, just more honesty. We live in an age obsessed with visibility, likes, views, shares, follows. To be seen has become a stand-in for being valuable. But Nietzsche, long before social media ever existed, saw the trap. Attention is not connection, and visibility is not meaning. You can go viral and still feel unseen. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone, because attention is external. It's fleeting, addictive, loud. But meaning, that's internal. It's built slowly, quietly, often invisibly. Meaning is found in the unseen acts, the things you do when no one's watching, the truths you tell even when no one's listening, the work that aligns with your essence, even if it never trends. Most people confuse the two. They chase validation, mistaking it for value. They perform, hoping applause will substitute for self-worth. But Nietzsche would ask, what do you see when the spotlight fades? When no one's watching? Who are you then? That's where meaning lives, and most people only realize this after they've built a persona so big, so curated, that they can no longer breathe inside it. Their love for a version of themselves. That was never real to begin with. And by then, they've lost not just time, but self. We think of death as the great thief. It takes away our time, our loved ones, our future. But Nietzsche didn't see death as an end. He saw it as a mirror, because when you confront death, not just in theory but in feeling, something inside you wakes up. Suddenly the small things vanish, the gossip, the petty fears, the fake obligations. What remains is what's real. Nietzsche once posed a terrifying thought experiment. What if you had to live this exact life over and over again for eternity? No edits, no escape, just this. Could you say yes? Most people couldn't, and that's the point. Because death isn't meant to scare you, it's meant to clarify you. When you remember that time is finite, you stop wasting it. You stop pretending you have forever. You stop delaying the conversations, the changes, the truths you've been putting off. And for many, it takes a diagnosis, a funeral, a brush with mortality. That's when they start asking, am I spending my time or wasting it? Am I loving deeply or just performing affection? Am I alive or just continuing? By then, the regrets come flooding in, not just for what was lost, but for what was never truly lived. Nietzsche didn't want you to fear death. He wanted you to use it as a lens through which life finally comes into focus. We all say we want freedom, but what we usually mean is convenience, comfort, permission to stay the same while feeling like we've changed. But Nietzsche didn't believe in that kind of freedom. He believed in the raw, terrifying kind, the kind that doesn't come with applause, but with loss. Because to become truly free, not just on the outside, but on the inside, you must give up every lie that's kept you comfortable. False friendships, roles you outgrew, the need to be liked, the identities you inherited, not chose, The coping mechanisms you called personality. The voices that told you, be small, be quiet, don't dream too loud. All of it has to go. Freedom isn't given, it's taken. And the price is everything that isn't real. And that's where most people stop. They flirt with authenticity, dip their toes into truth, but when the shedding begins, when the familiar starts to fall away, they panic. Because even if your life has been a cage, at least it was known. But Nietzsche believed that unless you lose what was never truly yours, you'll never discover what is. And most people don't learn this until they've lived a decade too long in a skin that never fit. Until they whisper, "Why do I feel like a stranger in my own life?" That's not failure, that's awakening. Because now, you can start living a life that's actually yours.